We are live. Welcome, everybody, to the Digital Art Market Show, The Damn Show. I am Roger Dickerman, RD, here with two very distinguished guests already, Nick Tomaino and Coldie. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Yeah, doing good. Thanks for having us.
Well, it's an exciting Monday. I feel like it's a fresh week. 24 Hours Telegram was popping early, setting the tone, presented by 24 Hours of Art, powered by Gandhi, of course. And I'll talk about them a little bit more later. But guys, I want to dig in. So number one, I understand that there's been some ferocious basketball being played behind the scenes. And Coldie, you may be a little worse for wear.
Yeah. We had a crazy pickup game over the weekend. I played with Nick, and he had some recently retired international pro players.
It was high level basketball for sure.
Yeah, very high level, and it was great. Yeah, we ran for hours until we were all just gassed, and I busted my pinky, but the game doesn't stop. You just tape it up and keep going.
The game doesn't stop. Let's go. So listen, a little bit of a backstory. I mean, I feel like this in a way has been a long time coming. Retracing the steps from my view, I was able to spend some time with both of you in the year 2024. And in that year, I mean, Coldie, I had known you for a lot of years prior to that. Nick, we had met, I don't know, in the year probably prior to that, but then both of you in 2024. And immediately, I mean, it was clear there was a mutual respect there. We'll get to it. Some fun art shares a little bit later. But Nick, you had acquired a few Coldies, including one that I really, really distinctly remember from that year, the Warren Buffett, which again we'll get to in a minute. And then some time passed, and a little bit earlier this year, a funny thing happened. I sort of stumbled into Grail, something that you guys kicked off together, and I think established this really interesting relationship that I don't know has been really talked about that much in terms of the quote unquote space. And a lot of times the people who interact in and around art. I'm sure some of you who are listening to this, welcome everybody, by the way. I'm sure some of you are very aware, and others of you are probably asking the question, well, what is all of that? I find it fascinating. That's what I try to bring to the show. And that's a little bit of a preface. But let's go back even a step further. That's my preface. Nick, can you give a preface to who you are as a person?
Yeah, I'm just a dude who grew up in Massachusetts and grew up very competitive, loved playing sports, also very curious. So I've never really trusted narratives or establishment, and kind of got into crypto early. Was one of the first employees at Coinbase, then started one of the first crypto venture funds, and have been kind of investing since. So I've been in crypto for well over a decade now, and still having fun and grinding and working, with people I like Coldie, trying to do interesting things. So that's really me in a nutshell.
And Coldie, why don't you follow that up? I know you're not a first-time guest, so plenty of people know you, but nevertheless.
Yeah. I grew up interested about technology. I never really considered myself like an artist growing up, but I was always like building websites when I was in like high school, and trying to figure out what the web was about, and like Sim City, and playing these like kind of nerdy games that all kind of came together in this super interesting way when I was working commercially, doing art direction and graphic design, and started doing my own art. And that all kind of coalesced when I found blockchain in 2017, and the metaverse and all these things I was doing as a nerdy kid, they all clicked right into place. And now collecting cards was a major obsession of mine as a child. It's really interesting how synchronicity works. All these things that you do have a way of finding their way back if they matter. So me and Nick connected, and this new venture of Grail is super fascinating to me, not only from the art side, but also just the mechanics of it all. And I'm just, it's a fun ride, and good to get going.
Well, before we get to, we got to give people a little bit of a teaser. Before we get to Grail, we have to get to the art side, to really where I saw you two guys collide. And Nick, I think to introduce a bit of your phrase. I mean, something that's become synonymous with you in my world is skin in the game, and here is skin in the game. profile in Super Rare with a couple choice artworks. And this right here, Warren Buffett Decentralized Variant 1, I think is a wonderful place to start. Nick, what did you see in this artwork and in Coldie at the time?
Well, Coldie really, he's kind of the quintessential creator that captures crypto culture, right? And that's just the type of art that I like. And also the type of art that I think will be most valuable in like 10 years. But yeah, so I kind of, in everything I do, whether it's investing or collecting art or, building companies, like I try to focus on what I like. And I'm not great at like dressing it up with like, narratives or things like that. I just, I like this artwork, and I think Coldie, all his artwork is awesome, and wanted to get long-term exposure to it. So that's really it.
Well, if I could prompt you, I mean, I think the most interesting bit that you drop, not needing anything long-winded, is just saying you believe that crypto-centric artwork is likely to age very well. Can you dive into that a second more?
Yeah, I mean, I think like my long-term thesis, that I've had about NFTs and crypto art for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years now, maybe, is just like traditional rich people gravitate to quote trad art as a store of value, crypto rich people will increasingly gravitate to crypto art as a store of value. And I think the most, if these people are making money from crypto, they'll ultimately probably believe in the kind of authentic creators that are creating the art that captures crypto culture. And I think, Punks is an example of that. I think, certainly a lot of Coldie's work is an example of that. And there's many others, but that's the general thesis. And, I think we're starting to see that play out in some ways, probably not in a big way yet, but, you're starting to see more, quote, crypto rich people buy punks and stuff like that. And I think that'll just continue.
Coldie, tell us the story from your side. So this story, I mean, we go back right here. Some long provenance on this one. We have to go all the way back to July 23rd, 2020. And you could see it change hands a few times, go to our friend Bat Soup Yum, and then ultimately end up in the collection of Nick. Tell us the story of Warren Buffett.
Well, hang on, just before Coldie goes, this is our NFT fund, by the way. So it's not me personally. And again, it's not something we like to be loud about or something, but I think we have the largest fund dedicated to NFTs that's institutional, and we're still actively investing out of it. And this was acquired through that fund. So
sorry, Nick, that's my faux pas. Definitely through that fund specifically. And then Coldie, tell us the story of it making its way to the fund.
Yeah, so the whole decentralized series is kind of through my own eyes, but also the community of crypto and what we're going through, and the people who are kind of shaping the narratives and making that like bookmark in the story along the way. Actually, it all started with the piece that Nick has, the Lost Vitalik. That was the very first one.
That's in my personal collection too, and I think that was one of the first NFTs that I ever bought, because again, that's just quintessential art that captures crypto culture in my view. So yeah, that has interesting lore. I don't know if you want to.
I mean, I can tell that. I can tell stories until you cut me off. But I'll give the quick Warren Buffett, then I'll talk about the Vitalik. So this, if we do start with the Vitalik, these are people that are, making, positive, transformative changes in the way that we, store assets and do peer-to-peer exchange. And the whole reason I started doing this was to really prove to the major artists that I looked up to, like Shepard Fairey and Banksy, that literally was like, if we all do our work here and we show that this works, then they can look at what we've done and hop in and do it, right? And since then, Shepard's done that, which is great. So I've been doing, positive people down the timeline of the decentralized. And one of these, opponents to it was Warren Buffett, and still is. And he was very vocal at this point in time, and he was dropping some amazing quotes along the way. And people in this series just kind of raise their hand to me when they do a certain thing. I'm like, okay, you've just raised your hand. You're coming in to decentralize. And it was great to have Warren Buffett. Not only the logo or the type is crypto is rat poison squared. Like, that's the most grandpa term I've ever heard in my life. And it was freaking perfect, right? So that got me going. And
can I just add, I love how you do with the decentralized series, you kind of do both sides. So you do, people that are widely revered within crypto, but also people that, are maybe disliked or villains, if you will. I remember when you did a sailor one on ordinals. Was that from the perspective of being revered or being a villain?
I kept that one like Switzerland because the quote.
Well, what do you think now?
Well, I mean, he's selling now, and he told us never to sell. But I guess he can sell, but we can't sell. So, Yeah. But you had very strong conviction about that, and you said, art's cool, but I don't want the sailor piece, and I really respected that. It wasn't just like, give me another Coldie.
Right.
So, and that's why I do this, especially in this series, is to start a conversation and to educate people, because I can show this portrait to a non-crypto person and, they're like, oh, that's Warren Buffett. And then you start having the dialogue of why. And
that's true. I actually have a normie friend, a friend from like high school that actually bought one of your Buffett pieces. And I without the context of like his view on Bitcoin, just because he's, such a famous investor and they like him. So that's a good point.
Yeah. And that's why, how I like to play it, right? Because art can mean 1,000 things to 1,000 people. So if I can paint a picture that opens up a dialogue without me having to say what I feel about a person, to me, that's what art is. Like, you can come up with your own decisions. And, for this Buffett, it's interesting. I was reading the detailed description on this, and it's just memory lane. I had a thesis for this series specifically. Was I was going to do a series of 10 Warren Buffetts, and creatively, I was going to start at a minimalist view, like in terms of like animations and stuff like that. So I started off very still and I had the flashing background, but then as you look at the ones afterwards, they get more insane on purpose, right? So towards the end of the line, it's just kind of chaotic Warren Buffett. But this one taught me also that things don't have to be over the top and crazy all the time, right? There's a time and a place for just a nice still image of a person. So, if you look at the bidding history, I think that, I saw Matt Cain was in there. We had some really, it was really cool to see the people who were bidding on this. Basileos, Billy Whistler, Blockchain Brett, a lot of OGs. And, back then we had a thing called a bidding war. We don't so much have those as much anymore, but the lore and how it shifted around from Bat over to Nick, that's the awesome thing about crypto art. It's all on chain, and the provenance is not on like a little napkin that you tape to the back of it. Like, it's the real deal.
Two quick comments. One, just to double back, we don't have to belabor this, but I'm really bent out of shape about the turn of Sailor. So I have that gold and a lot of money, one of one. Coldie, I know you appreciate that one. Nick, we talked about that one before as well. But yeah, it doesn't not as rosy today as it once was. But Nick, you're to Coldie's point, you were convicted in that.
I don't think it's ever been rosy with
right.
Sailor.
I was going to say, you've been convicted in that for many years.
63-year-old guy with no children that is just on TV shilling. Like, that's the epitome of soulless greed to me. So I don't think it's ever been rosy with Sailor. But
fair. Fair. Well, we also
and the quote, I'll jump in. The quote on that was very duality, right? And I loved the quote on the sailor was, it's either going to go to 0 or it's going to go to 1,000,000. And that to me was like, great. Like, you know, and in terms of a pull quote, he's playing out both sides of his hand, you know.
Mm-hmm. Coldie, on this front, it also brings me back. One of our most fun moments inside 24 Hours of Art was this, which you yourself had a hand in. It was one of the first times, I think it was the literal first time we ever rearranged the lettering ART to RAT to, of course, homage the quote and your expression of it. But you had sent us some layers for this, and I remember this being a really fun day. Justin Wetch's power went out in Alaska. All the things.
And shout out to Justin. He's a true magician. From one artist to another, that guy is on level 13, dude. He is out of control.
Let's go. Justin Wesh. All right, back to you guys. So now I think this is, I wanted to preface that because, again, I saw this relationship blossom in front of my eyes between the two of you, but then you guys took a leap together in 2026. And here we are. We arrive at the doorstep of Grail. Let me actually pull up the website directly. I have an asset on OpenSea that we'll get to in a second. Well, let's go to Grail. What's Grail?
The basic idea is that sports cards and real world collectibles generally are super fun to collect. They're also durable. They've been valuable for 100+ years, but they suck for making people money. There's not much liquidity. There's not much price transparency. There's like a few companies that really control the whole thing. So the basic idea is, can we tokenize real world collectibles, bring them on chain, and make them easy to trade and invest in, just like a cryptocurrency?
How do you end up having the thought, or who has the thought? How does it transpire that Coldie's going to be a part of this thing and he's going to be spearheading the art in the art direction?
That was my thought. I think it took a little convincing because what we're really trying to do, it is we're tokenizing real world collectibles, but we're also trying to build a brand that people trust, right? So the design is really important. The artwork that we use is really important. There's also an NFT component to it, and to me, Coldie was like, I had a list, but Coldie was on the top of my list for people that would be, really ideal to build the brand with from the design perspective. So I think, Coldie can speak for himself, but I think it took a little convincing. I think he always kind of liked the idea. It's not like he was dismissive when I first mentioned it, but I think he didn't really get it maybe fully, or he, potentially didn't see it at first, but then I think I was able to convince him, and then we've been working together ever since. Is that accurate, Coldie?
Yeah, absolutely. I understood the basis of it, and then I put on my commercial art director hat, and Nick sends me version 0.00 of the website, and I'm like, Nick, this, we can't, or this website, it needs help. It's not ready for prime time. He's like, oh yeah, we're gonna, that's, just think about the thesis. I'm like, okay, but then we got into like design talk, and it's he knew my background, as a graphic designer and an art director, and I told him, I was like, I can be that guy, in addition to the art side of it. And once we lifted up the hood and started talking, I was fully committed. And it's also a leap of faith to cross that chasm where you have a relationship with somebody as a patron and a collector, and then you have them as like someone you like to play basketball with. That's like a nice bucket. But then it's like, do you want to do business with a person as well? And Nick is uniquely qualified to be that guy, right? So I just had to, take a step back and look inside and think about what this could be and like what opportunity it was. And also I freaking love sports cards, right? So, once all the boxes were checked, I just, jumped into the fire, and we're only in, maybe now it's August, maybe technically month 4. But it's been very early, and we've purposefully kept it under the hood for a while we've been, kind of developing the infrastructure. But it's been super fun to do, like an MJ portrait, some of these things. I've had the idea of a sports series along DIs, but to actually transition into a new market really was super exciting. It wasn't crypto collectors specifically. We're reaching out to the broad collector audience, and getting out to people who know MJ more than they know crypto, or especially me. So it's been a wonderful kind of blend together.
Part of my thinking on this, and I think what I conveyed to Coldie as well, is that one thing I don't love about crypto and NFTs largely is it's maybe you create some art and then you create all these narratives about it, and it becomes just like shilling the narrative about it, right? And how many people can you get to buy into the narrative about it? And I think there's too much of that and not enough like building products that are actually culturally relevant. And so, my pitch to Coldie is like, look, I love your crypto art. I'm one of the biggest collectors of it, but I think crypto art and NFTs needs to permeate culture in new and different ways. And this part of my thing on this was inspiration from Polymarket, which I've been involved in from the beginning and am now on the board of. And Polymarket, arguably, there's no better company that's been able to create a product that just is culturally relevant and on the timeline. And especially for young people want to just trade and invest in what's on the timeline. And, Polymarket allows you to do that in one way. The idea with Grail is to allow you to do that in another way, particularly like rather than betting on a game or even like, a person on a yearly basis. Grail, you're betting directly on people on either a short-term or long-term basis. And if you look at the people that are on Grail, it's particularly people that are culturally relevant and in the timeline. So for Coldie, it's like, let's get more eyeballs on your art by creating a product that more people, will use. And that's what we're trying to do.
Let's take a step back just for 1 second. Say good morning to everybody in here, joining us, commenting in, deconstructing the house. Asterism is in here saying good morning to all of us. Jules, Verdandy, Justin Wetch, talked about him earlier. Pinstripe Gator says good morning, you wonderful humans. Miles Morgan says we the market, and GMJ Goat. And there we have it. So I love that preface to Grail, the origin story of Grail, if you will. Coldie, even thinking about it further, we talked about your art. You have the art direction history at LA Weekly, and you have this sports fandom. Man, we were in a fantasy basketball league together years ago, right? Yeah. And I think I had a heartbreaking second place finish in that very league. And you're also a Sacramento Kings fan. I'm sorry for that. But I mean, what a perfect merger of these three facets of your life.
Yeah, it really, it's also the timeline of sports cards that really fascinates me. I grew up collecting in the 80s and 90s. And back then you would walk into a card shop. I was actually talking with Brett, Blockchain Brett, about this. It changed, right? Because in the 80s and 90s, you walk into a card shop and you're a kid and you want to buy a card, and there's no PSA. Like, you're looking at a card and you see a price and you think, I want it. But we didn't even know like really about like what a bent corner would be, or if a scratch was on the back, or, we were just collecting for the joy of it. Right. But now it's been so authenticated and commercialized that it's a financial product. Right. And I think when that started happening, I was out of the game, but I have a son and we go to sports card shops, and it's really wild to see like basically everything is slabbed. And you can easily look at comps based on the grade. And the ones that aren't slabbed are like 90% off for a reason, right? So it's really interesting to see the evolution of sports cards. And, I one funny thing, funny for me, not funny for my parents, I never threw away any of my common cards. My Spectrum had me chronologically get them all in number order. I had like 200,000 cards freaking everywhere. So this is near and dear to my heart to tap back into my younger self and see what the potential was to digitally get a piece of like a wonderful card that I could never afford. I could, put in as little as $1 and basically join in this like community instead of my stash of MJ cards in a binder that I show to 2 friends. Now it's bigger than that. And I think what we're building is going to grow that larger than just I have some exposure to MJ and Messi.
Speaking of, you mentioned the slabbing and the grading and the financialization of the card collecting industry. Pinstripe Gator just says the $11 million Ohtani was pulled this past week at a shop down the street from him. Fun. I want to ask you each a question. Coldie, you about the art. I'm going to hold that thought for a second. Nick, start back to you. So I'm going to click back on MJ here. I think that's one of the more infamous examples of a card. And can you begin from the actual card? So the 86 Fleer MJ, begin from the actual card and sort of trace that user experience as to what you do on your end, and then how a user interacts and maybe the choices that they make along the way.
Yeah, so we create tokens, right? So we created GMJ, which is a B20 token on base, right? We have a backend admin system, which our dev team built, which actually makes this really easy to do, which is create a token, create reserve assets. And in every case of a token on Grail, the reserve asset, the core reserve asset is the highest market cap PSA 10 rookie card. Okay, so in this case, it's the 1986 Michael Jordan Fleer number 57 PSA 10. So we create the token, we create the core reserve asset, and then in some cases we actually buy the card as well. And so to bootstrap this, we now have vaulting open to anyone. So anyone that has this card can now vault it with us, and we mint them tokens. But this was one of the first tokens we launched, and we launched the token. We launched a reserve asset. We bought 2, and this is one of the most well-known, highest value rookie cards there is. It's a $375,000 or so card. That's what you could buy it for, on eBay or through private seller right now. We bought 2 of them, and they're now trading on chain at about a 371,000 value, which is at a slight discount to the quote fair market value off chain. So that's at a high level how it works. The core belief is that card collecting is too much of an insider game, and it's just, again, it sucks for making people money. You buy packs. Packs are fun, but you buy a pack for $10 and there's $5 of expected value within the pack, right? Then you have someone you want to believe in. This actually, part of the catalyst for this whole company for me was I wanted to put $100,000 on Victor Wembanyama. This was about a year and a half ago. And then when I went to try to do it, it's like, okay, there's 200 different Wemby rookie cards. So what's the right card to buy? Then, okay, you find the right card to buy. Then you have to worry about PSA 10, PSA 9, PSA 8. Then if you identify, okay, it's the 2023 Silver Prism Wemby PSA 10, then it's really hard to buy a lot. You have to go on eBay. Even for someone like Wemby, who's one of the most traded guys, there's something like 30,000 in Wemby trading volume every day. And when you compare that to like some, random meme coin, it's just completely out of whack. And so what I ended up doing, I ended up getting 100K on Wemby, but it took me like 3 months. And, again, participating in these eBay auctions and there's not a lot of price transparency. And so again, this idea is like, okay, let's just create tokens, GMJ, GWEMBY. Let's curate the reserve so that we get the highest quality reserve assets for users. And then let's just let people buy the token just like they buy a meme coin. And the thesis is like, there's millions of people that probably believe in Wemby and want to get long-term exposure to him, but there's just no simple way to do it. And the thesis is proving true. I mean, we now have users in many different countries that couldn't get exposure to these guys they believe in before, and now they're doing it on chain. So I really think it's a great use case. Like the most interesting thing about a blockchain is global access to me, and we're giving global access to high-end collectibles that represent good long-term exposure to people. So that's the thesis. And to be honest, it's like we had this idea for a while, and we wanted to find someone to execute it. That's kind of our model. I mean, we've been, since 2017, we've been investing in kind of products first, products we like. We've been doing a great job of it. And in many cases, it's like we have a product that we want to see, and then the right founder comes along, right? And that was the case with OpenSea and Polymarket and SuperRare and many others. In this case, we had this idea, and the right founder didn't come along. So then we said, all right, we're just going to do it ourselves.
And here you are. And I like that story about the Wembanyama in particular, right? When you said you had 100K, you wanted to express it on Victor Wembanyama, and you were thinking about the various ways to do that. And there was no way that was necessarily low-hanging fruit enough and efficient and easy. And so you go out and create the thing. Let's go actually over to OpenSea to a Wemby card. And then Coldie, let me pose you the question. So you get handed an athlete, an entrepreneur, a personality. What is your process like? How do you approach that? How do you create the art behind this?
Yeah, it's an ever evolving process with any art endeavor. It was really fun to start with Wemby because he's just such a unique human specimen, and just the way he plays basketball, he's taken over the whole world. And I took that basis, and then also looked at the decentralized series and kind of looked at how can I do like a full body, of a person, have it still have that essence of the series, but also have it be its own. So, Wemby and Yamal were the first two subject matters. And, I just jumped in and started playing with, the same things, collaging, using new technologies, like, using, AI to generate whatever image that we wanted. Like I'm very careful about, using photographers' images without permission. Well, we don't have to do that anymore, right? We can generate the Wemby image, and then I'm free to go, and I don't have this like thing hanging over my head of like, oh man, this poor photographer, I have to get licensed and whatnot. So it's using the tools at hand, and using my own bag of tricks, and coming up with something that I, as a card collector of many years, would be excited to look at. And some of my favorites, we'll take a throwback. I love the 80s Topps series. There's some, and even into the 90s, like 90s Skybox, there's some wonderful art design that's been in cards that I think, Kaboom, there's been some art that's been back into cards, but it's actually gotten kind of stale over the years, in my opinion. So I think Grail has the unique positioning of, let's push this in an avant-garde art way, and especially through the token packs, that people can collect the packs, and then they have a decision to make where they can hold on to the NFT, they can hold on to the NFT, and you'll see in the bottom corner, it says how many tokens that card is associated to. And that becomes another arbitrage game, or like, what is your skin in the game? And each card is also like kind of it is a vault of tokens. So, they are basically not staking it, but they're just holding those tokens inside of a card. So it has like multiple values to different people. Yeah, this is
I think I think kind of in many ways this part of Grail is not understood or appreciated yet, because there's there's different levels to it. I think most people, we've had the most success with people viewing the RG tokens just as meme coins, right? So we first broke out when Wemby had, I think it was like game 2 of the Western Conference semifinals, when he hit a deep 3 and kind of went off for 40 points or something and went super viral, and people were buying G Wemby to get exposure to that. And we do have a small like user base that's also really passionate about the more card collecting aspect of it, but but not as many people know about that yet, and we have to figure out how to make more people aware. But there certainly are different aspects, and we've had a lot of success actually selling packs, and it's a very unique pack that you're buying, because it's a pack that has only PSA 10 highest quality cards. There's a Coldie NFT, a Grail NFT designed by Coldie, that the card backs, and you can also convert it to fungible tokens if you want. So we like all three. It's like people tend to be tribal about either their NFTs or their fungible tokens or their real world collectibles. And on Grail, the user can have what they prefer, and you can always convert one to the other. So it's been interesting to see kind of the adoption too, because if you look from a pure like users and volume perspective, people prefer the fungibles, right? We've had about over 13 million in total volume in the fungible tokens, and over 4,000 users. And then if you look at the NFTs, again, there's people that really believe in them and don't want to sell, but it's much smaller, and we've only done about $4,000 worth of volume on the NFT collection so far. So
there's a messy, I think one of the bigger sales you guys have seen on secondary. Nick, I was going to ask, what's the percent conversion you're seeing when people are opening packs? What percentage are converting to fungibles? What percentage are keeping the Grail art designed by Coldie?
Good question. Yeah. About 80% are converting. So roughly, and it's varied, I think, by pack. In some cases, less are converting, but overall on packs, something like 80% are converting to fungibles. And the packs, I'm sure people watching know Courtyard or any of these other packs companies. One thing we've learned about the packs is that there's a lot of botting that goes on, and like most of those companies, I don't think really have any true brand loyalty. I think it's just people trying to scrape some EV and or maybe get a big hit. But we've actually tried to talk to real users of these digital pack companies, and we couldn't find anyone. So what we're trying to do with the packs is kind of get some more brand loyalty and do things like create a whitelist so that makes it harder for bots to participate, so that we're letting real users participate. And again, we haven't really optimized for the packs. We haven't, especially lately, we haven't done many of them, but every pack we do sells out very quickly. And there does seem to be demand for it, whether it's for the art, the exposure to the real world asset, or maybe again, there are people, and probably bots too, that are trying to scrape the EV too, because we've varied the EV, but in most cases our pack EV has been slightly positive. So
we'll have some fans in the house for sure. So we have YWC says one of the 20% holding the art. Nardi in the house says touch the art. OG here Ozzy says, still surprises me that people don't grab the free money on Grail by doing arbitrage. It sounds like there's some of that in a few spots. Fungible in the house, GM, fellow Grail enjoyers,
Yeah,
swatted.
I mean, on the arbitrage again, if there are people that want to learn, want to get in the game, I always say like the best way to learn is to try the product. And the great thing about Grail is you could try the product with $1 or something. And we were also using a lot of the tools now that make it easier. So we use Coinbase headless KYC. So you can, using Apple Pay, get $10 onto the app right now without doing KYC and giving all your personally identifiable information. So what one of the users I think alluded to was the ARB, which is in some cases the tokens are trading at a premium to FMV. In some cases they're trading at a discount, and if it's a discount, which I think actually someone did today, I think the GPICA was trading at a discount to FMV. And so what that user did was buy up 10,000 tokens. And I think he plans to redeem the tokens for the actual real world card. And then that's a card that's actually pretty liquid. And if he wants, he can sell it on eBay or Fanatics Collect and capture the ARB. Or maybe he just wants to hold it and get long-term exposure. He could do either one. But there's I think a lot of crypto products, if you can create some type of game within a game, that makes it interesting and fun for people, especially when it's related to culture. And there are several interesting games within a game that we're offering on Grail, and the ARB one is an interesting one that I think people will start paying attention more and more to.
Nick, specific question from Ozzy, then I have a broader question for you. Ozzy says, is it possible that NFTs from other marketplaces that match with G tokens could import to Grail?
By import, I'm not sure exactly what he means, but we could have at some point we could certainly do a G Coldie token, right? That's where the reserve assets are either Coldie's physical artwork or his NFTs, right? We could do a G Beeple where maybe that is backed by a combination of politics is bullshit and regular animals, which I just got yesterday or last week, and actually Coldie helped me set up a little bit. So I'm not sure if that's what he meant by import, but that is something we're thinking about.
Nick, has your regular animal pooped yet?
Actually, no. I haven't. It's pretty easy to set up and get walking, but I haven't. I think I need to activate the printer or put the paper in the right spot. And actually, Coldie was with me this week, and I was going to ask him to check it out, but I might. I got to do that this week. I haven't got it to poop yet, though.
One of the more special moments out there. I'm sure there's somebody out there doesn't know what the hell we're talking about right now. It is a robotic animal. I believe you have the head of Mark Zuckerberg. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are lucky moments where actually there is a printer that prints out a beautiful print. Nick, broader question for you, and it revolves around hype. Can you go into your philosophy around that a bit? Because it's obvious, as you're rolling this out, Coldie, I believe you said earlier it's about month 4, but it's clear that out of the gate, you are more interested in building up that infrastructure prior to, let's say, sending something to the moon.
Yeah. I mean, look, we want to win at the end of the day. So I'm not. I don't like to take a holier than thou approach at all. It's like we got to figure out how to win. But what I've learned is you win biggest by creating useful products and communities that really believe. And I think in crypto there's too much, pumping and dumping. And pump and dumps. It looks like you're winning kind of in the moment, but it's really not. And so you have to find a balance because there are pump and dumps also, not a pump and dump, but some level of pump, some level of marketing, maybe you need, and you need to bring people in. But I think it's really important to bring the right people in, people that are more values aligned and kind of long-term believers in the thing, rather than people that just want to make quick money. And I've learned too, it's like counter signals are very real, right? So what people, I've seen people get played by this time and time again over the past 15 years, but like, I think a lot of people are too left brained. They interpret the world too literally. And when you see someone pumping, it's like you buy into that. You see that as a signal that they really believe in it. But actually, I've learned from experience that what you really want is like quiet believers, right? If you're confident in what you're doing, you're not pumping all the time. You're building something real and believing. And so again, it's a balance. I don't a lot of people, myself included, need to be careful to not be holier than thou about it. And it is, because it's a spectrum, and there's some people that market that maybe I perceive to be pumpers, but maybe they're just doing good marketing. I don't know. But at the end of the day, again, just from my experience being involved in Coinbase, and Polymarket and OpenSea and Bridge, is like, for a while, there wasn't a lot of believers. For a while, there wasn't any pumping. There was just like building, getting shit done, quietly believing, and then, it ultimately catches fire. So that's really what we're trying to do with Grail.
Coldie, this may be an awkward question, so if you have to skip it, that's okay. Is there an athlete or somebody out there that's a dream to grab and put onto digital canvas?
Oh, that's a really good question. I definitely have like a list of different like sectors, like kind of themes of people. I think musicians, to me, would be a very interesting series. One of my favorite musicians ever is Chris Cornell. I think he would be a good subject matter. And then there's people like Prince, Michael Jackson. Some of these people that I think are so culturally ingrained.
What about Daniel from Division?
Oh man, he blew me away. Man, yeah. Daniel's amazing. Yeah, Nick had Daniel up to perform, and holy crap, man, that guy has a voice like an angel, and his lyrics are just like raw and real. It's those types of people, right, that I think people connect with deeper at times for different reasons. So I'd probably say like musicians would probably be one aspect. My favorite athlete growing up was Shaq. And actually I got a couple Shaq PSA cards, the kind of card that you would never even see live in the 90s. I picked up some of those for my personal collection just to kind of like check the childhood boxes.
Shaq, maybe. No, not breaking any news. No speculation.
Well, so we'll kind of lean into that too. It's like, it's interesting, where we are now, the types of people that people care about. Shaq's kind of what they'd call an old head, I guess. Now, like he's behind the podium talking, but you weren't there to see the Shaq. You don't understand. But one of the things that we've all seen at Grail that has taken us, I think, by surprise is speed. I show Speed. One of the biggest streamers. He's just got a great personality. His memes are I see his memes every morning on the timeline, and it's really like we're doing a lot of kind of thoughtful experimentations of different like sectors. And the Speed token, Nick and Brett are two of the main sourcers, and they were able to get these two Speed cards that are PSA 10 signed assets, which are essentially, those are his rookie cards, right? And for years and years, early, I guess it's a 2025, but like people would look at this and be like, what is this? Like a speed wrestling card? That's culture, right? And I think that being early to find the right cultural impact cards really sets the tone. And you can also see, if you go back to the vault, there's new additional speed assets that are also in there now, right? Like a signed game worn jersey. I don't know if it's signed, but it's a game worn speed jersey. And that's kind of what we're building is this like rich vault that people can be a part of and, have access to these really cool tokens.
Nick, what's next? What can we all look forward to?
I mean, more tokens, right? We want to, it's really important that we're adding people who are culturally relevant and who people want, a lot of people want exposure to. So if you think in terms of the direction that we'll be going, I mean, obviously NFL season is coming up. And so, quarterbacks are going to be like Jackson Dart and Drake May are going to be in the timeline. And so, we'll be adding a lot of NFL players. We're also very excited on the speed kind of riff. Speed is unique because he's a creator, a non-athlete. And I think real world collectibles for non-athletes is a really interesting place to invest right now for the next 10 years. Someone like Speed, if you compare like Speed to Shaq, for example, it's like in 10 years, it's hard to see a world where Shaq is more culturally relevant than he is now, right? But in 10 years, Speed's very young. There's a good chance that he's more culturally relevant than he is now. And so I think, and it's like not a lot of people believe in non-athlete collectibles yet. And so I just think like this is a very interesting long-term market. The challenge though is like Speed, he's a streamer, but he's also done some WWE. So there were rookie cards for him. For a lot of these creators like Speed that are streaming and very popular, they don't actually have real world collectibles yet. And so we are looking at also creating our own real world collectibles for, Speed, but 5 years before where he is now, for example. So those are the main things that we want to do is just create new, investable opportunities that people want to get exposure to, both on the G token side and also on the packs and NFTs side.
One interesting comment in here that I don't want to miss came from Miles Morgan talking about collectible cards being expensive in Turkey and taxes being very high. And so Grail said, quote, allowing me to live a childhood dream that they never got to experience. So that was an interesting one.
Yeah, we've heard from a lot of people outside the U.S. That just want exposure. Wemby, for example, somehow it got on the radar of a lot of people in China during the NBA playoffs that were buying G Wemby, and it really, again, global access is the best kind of feature of a blockchain, I think, and we're able to utilize that. So we want to keep leaning into that as well, certainly, and that also includes, if you look at our tokens so far, maybe they're pretty US centric, and so thinking more about creators or entertainers or athletes in Asia, for example, and getting some of them on there. It's, at the end of the day, it's got to be. I think a lot of our success is going to come from being tapped into culture and adding people and collectibles that are interesting.
So creators and entertainers, Gronk AI in the house says G Swift wanted that to be mentioned. And Ozzy also says, will there be more crypto culture stuff coming, or does real world collectibles stay the focus?
I think it's going to be both. By crypto culture stuff, that might be like a G Coldie or G Beeple, right? Which I think is very interesting because, we want to add, if you look at the tokens that we've added so far, we've tried to add people that are interesting to different types of people. So there's probably a lot of NFT collectors, for example, that don't care about sports, and that's where the NFT creators could be interesting. So I think sports, there's a big market for. There's big existing collectibles, and the other side of this, which we haven't really tapped into, is getting card collectors vaulting and being able to mint tokens and then tap into like DeFi primitives, which I think is very interesting. If you talk to card collectors, it's impossible to get a collateralized loan. It's impossible to get liquidity or even earn fees from cards you're just sitting on. And so the idea of like vaulting with us, minting tokens, then putting the tokens in an AMM to earn fees, or putting them in a pool to get a collateralized loan on, stuff like that. We're also going to start going really hard on. That's it. We just opened up vaulting last week, and we're starting to get an influx of people that are buying the cards and minting. And that's the other side of the arbitrage too. If FMV is much higher than, or if the on-chain value is much higher than the FMV, then there's actually an arbitrage opportunity to vault and sell. And that doesn't exist in all tokens, to be clear. Like Speed, for example, the total supply is locked, but for most of our tokens, there's the opportunity to, especially the ones that have high pop, there's the opportunity to bring more on chain. So,
and I'll kind of hop in a little bit similar to that. I was talking with Brett over the weekend about all this stuff, and Brett is super deep into this. I mean, he's one of our team members. So like, I was really picking his brain about the innards of this all, and he made a really astute observation, was the amount of fees that go into selling a card on eBay. Let's say you sold the MJ card on eBay. After everything's said and done, you're losing around 30% between taxes and eBay fees and all that. So your $300,000 sale, you're coming home with like $200,000. Like, that's a lot of loss, right? So if Grail's goal is to become, and this tagline was started inside of our chat, was we the market. Like, we can be that market where we can cut out this middleman that is just, they're the de facto place to buy and sell a card, but that doesn't need to be that way. You can buy and sell on Grail, and if you vault, it stays in a third-party vault that's secure and safe. You're not shipping this thing with FedEx and it gets damaged or lost. There's a lot of like counterparty risk to all of this. So streamlining that whole process, and the card can stay in the same place, right? It can be sold from one person to the next, and it can stay in that vault. I think that is another opportunity that right now, like Nick was saying, you're doing, peer-to-peer sales, or you're doing an eBay sale. Like, that's a lot of friction that doesn't need to be that way.
Nick, I want to be respectful. I know we're coming up on the hour here. Any last words as we ship off for the damn show?
I would just say, yeah, if you're a believer in NFTs still, obviously NFTs were way up, they're way down from where they were. There's still a lot of people who do believe. I think too many people who do believe are just kind of sitting on their hands, or trying to, again, create narratives rather than like building stuff and trying to make a impact so that we permeate culture, way more than we already have. So I would encourage anyone watching that believes in NFTs to not just tweet about it or something like that, but actually get in the game. And we're trying to build a team of those people too. So feel free to reach out to us if you want to learn more about Grail, kind of the vision, anything that we're doing, or even, if you want to help us, bridge crypto and culture. We need more of that. We need more people, building rather than just talking about it.
Let's go. Miles Morgan says, believe in something. Also, skin in the game, one of my favorite phrases.
And a shout out to Miles and Nardi and Ozzy. We're building that community already, right? And they're very active, and they want to help and they're jumping in with great feedback. They want to build this thing, and that's how it starts, right? Like that's the community inside of Grail. Like they're investing in getting into cards, but they want Grail, right, to be a thing. So I think it's awesome that people are stepping up and they're getting their own skin in the game in different ways. And like Nick said, I'm always open ears. We're always learning. We're always open to feedback because we want to build the very best product possible for everybody. So we don't have blinders on. So my DMs are open. Hit us up. We have a great Telegram. So there's a lot of ways to get connected, and I think that it's like we said, it's so early that we're throwing stuff. We're throwing stuff against the wall, and the things that stick, we grow, and we can pivot quickly. So I think now is a great time to spend $5, get some tokens, see what it's about, hop into the website, see your portfolio, the pools, your NFTs. There's a lot going on. So I think if anybody's interested, just try a little bit and see what you think, and let us know.
Guys, it's been a pleasure. 4 months in the making, maybe a few years in the making, but appreciate having you both here today. Nick, Coldie, be well.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate all you're doing for NFTs too. You're one of the best at what you do, and any way we can help moving forward too. We're always locked in.
Thank you, man. Not short on belief, not short on skin in the game. All right, guys.
All right, see you guys.
I appreciate you.
Nick Tomaino, Coldie. See you guys. All right, and there we have it. So Nick and Coldie of Grail, again, been around a long time. One of the most interesting, I think, collections we talked about earlier. Obviously, Nick has some pieces personally, but the specific piece, the Buffett, is in the fund. The fund is one of the more interesting collections to explore out there. Highly suggest that you do so. I want to cover a few quick things on the way out today. Have some fun news. Let's start with, of course, presented by. Let's go here. Boom, there it is. 24 hours of art. There's today's report. Now, fun news, why I wanted to bring this up is we have something new launching this week, and it's been a long time coming. Those guys were talking about 4 months. This is probably about 4 months in the making for us, and it's a facelift of the subscriber side of 24 hours of art. We've been working on this for quite some time. We're excited to get it into your hands, but it's, I think, just a far, far better way to interact with the contents of 24 hours of art. So I wanted to place a little teaser in your lap today. If you read this on a daily basis or even just dip in from time to time, I think, and I hope, and I expect that you'll be pleased with what's coming. I want to talk about who powers the show, and that, of course, is Gandhi. There they are. And specifically, one of my favorite things. So, I try to highlight a key loan or a key sale or a key trade, all of which happen on Gandhi. And there it is. This is one of my favorites, the Gazers by Matt Cain, but not just the Gazers, the Aluminum Gazers. And I think they have one of the more fun nicknames in the collection, the Illuminati. And there are 58 of them. And there it was, Gandhi being the home of a $42,000 USDC sale, privately bought just one day ago. And there we have that. And the last thing I wanted to shout today, now I think this is not going to be the last time that we shout this out, because I personally am just getting started with this. Let me show you their screen first. There it is. Ferrophile digital art system with the FF1 art computer. And there's that. But now a funny thing, if we remove that from the screen, see that? Right behind me. Got some work to do. We changed the camera angle. We're messing around with the screen. We're messing around with the software. And of course, on the screen today is none other than last week's guest. So if you didn't catch last week's The Digital Art Market Show, which is, of course, available on X and YouTube, you can still go back and watch the recording. But fun things have happened. It was none other than artist Mendez. That is what's depicted, Entropy, up there on the wall. He has since had that release, since sold almost 2,000 open editions within that release alongside OpenSea. It's traded on secondary, but the very fun thing is happening today. So a little fun construction, fun mechanics. It looked like an open edition. So you have 1,820 open editions. Oh, that's a lot, right? It's a lot of open editions, but there were 45 artworks behind those open editions. And the fun starts today. So what happened first over the weekend was that series of 1820 was split up into 3 pieces, 3 series, each series containing 15 artworks, all with varying rarities. And then now 2-week process unfolds where day by day, these new artworks are revealed one at a time, and a percentage of these open editions convert into them. And so this collection will look a lot different 2 weeks from now than it did on inception, than it does today. And so I think it's going to be quite a fun ride. Well, anyway, this is Digital Art Market Show. Thanks everyone for being here. Hey, it's the summertime. Summertime is hit and miss. I hope that you are taking some time. I hope that you are touching grass and doing all the things and enjoying the family and friends and whatever you are focused on in life. And I hope you're inspired by what we're doing here. I like hanging out with those two guys. So again, Nick Tomaino and Coldie, I like hanging out with those guys. Both of those guys are battle tested. They've been through it all. They've gone on to achieve and do some amazing things, and they're building something now. But I love those phrases. Those believe in something makes me think of that Jules artwork. If you know, you know. I think Bat Soup Yum in the Bat Soup Yum collection. But the believe in something phrases, the skin in the game, the long term, right? And I think Nick made a good point. Don't be too precious about that. Hype is not necessarily a bad thing if it's built on something substantive and substantial. But yeah, I really resonate with what those guys believe in, with what they're up to now, and with what I'm sure we'll see from them as time goes. So thank you everyone for being here. I mentioned so many wonderful names today on the way out. I see Verdandi saying thank you. Thank you as well, Victoria, for inspiring. I see Lynette Bennett Grant in here. Happy Monday, friends. Lynette just passed 500 consecutive, now well past it, but just had the 500 milestone, 500 mask milestone, I guess let's call it, of these beautiful explainers that she does on every Mask of Lucy by Sam Spratt. So another shout out to Lynette today. All right, everybody. Digital Art Market Show, Damn Show, presented with 24 Hours of Art, powered by Gandhi. I am Roger Dickerman. See you next Monday. Bye, everybody.